Hi, I'd like to share with you a way of talking with children about climate crisis that I found really helpful. So it's a story of 3 stories, and I'd like to acknowledge Joanna Macy, who has also developed 3 stories of our time, and there is there's quite a lot of overlap between these. I've changed some of the language, or I'm using different language to for the context of this, which is conversations with children to help them organise their thinking or acknowledge what's going on around their thoughts and feelings about the climate crisis. So the 3 stories are Just Keep Going, Catastrophe, and Change. And I could have made you a really fancy slide, but I just want to show you that I think just scribbling, just writing 3 circles down on a piece of paper in the conversation is a really good way of making something very visual and tangible, and means that while you're talking you can add notes and pictures or ideas, and your child can add their thoughts and feelings and responses too. So it becomes a dynamic conversation rather than just a lecture. So the story of the Just Keep Going story is basically business as usual. This is where we just don't take any notice of climate crisis. We carry on paying people massive profits to extract oil and gas. We carry on telling children that their future is meaningless without a maths GCSE, and that everything about their future is to do with their success at school. Or we just keep, we can buy as much plastic as we like as long as we recycle it. That's the sort of, so Just Keep Going also that story includes maybe recognising that there's a climate crisis, but using existing systems and existing values to meet it. So let's keep flying, but let's pay somebody to, we'll have companies who are researching electric aeroplanes or let's see if we can go and live on Mars. What would that mean? Or let's make technology that's going to suck carbon out of the sky. And it's still there's still a capitalist model of only if it's profitable can we find solutions. There's conversations like happening at COP at the moment, COP27, of who's going to pay for the mess? Who's going to? How do we trade carbon emissions? How do the rich countries carry on causing climate crisis, but somehow find a way of paying for it? So the Just Keep Going model is very common. It's also something that in privileged countries like the UK, many people can go about their daily life ignoring the fact that the climate crisis is happening. So part of Just Keep Going is ignoring it all. And if you're a parent who's engaged with climate, then you'll know the frustration and isolation of not being able to talk about it with friends at the school gate or with your friends and family, because so many people still have the luxury of pretending it's not happening. So the story of catastrophe is the one that we're much more familiar with in the world of climate activism, and which is where a lot of the anxiety happens. So catastrophe is where we realise that things are in a mess. So we learn and find out about the devastation that's happening all over the world. We acknowledge, like this summer with the heat wave we had, we don't go, oh, what a lovely day. We acknowledge that this is weather patterns changing, and that is frightening for the future. We look at rising sea levels. We read the reports, and we see that we don't stand a chance globally of meeting targets for temperatures of global warming. And so in that story of catastrophe, that is the main thing that we're aware of. We're living in this in climate grief, anxiety, rage, desperate activism, sacrifice, emergency. So both of those stories are very common, and many of us are living between them. So we will be awake in the night worried, and then the next day we'll carry on with taking our children to the birthday parties and just trying to fit in with the world around us and find some way of coping with this knowledge of catastrophe in our minds. So this is where the third story is really important, I think very important that we share with our children, which is the story of change. So in the story of change, we face the catastrophe. It's not about denying that. And we also know that we are in a place where there's some just keep going story that we're in. We may still send our children to school, even though what they're teaching them is on the whole pointless and unrealistic, or not facing the future that they're going to be meeting. So we know that we're living in that uncomfortable place of the keeping going and aware of catastrophe. But in the story of change, we recognise that we are part of a huge movement of people making something different. In the story of change, we can talk about those big feelings, and we can be held in them, and we can get support, and we can join with others and create new things or learn from indigenous wisdom and act together. So in the story of change is activism, is meaningful action in whatever way it is meaningful to you or your child. That might be being on marches, it might be civil disobedience, it might be school strikes, it might be writing letters to the right people or the wrong people, it might be making posters or creating creative acts of beauty, or organising things in your local community, setting up local food projects, being part of your climate action network, all of those things. And part of the story of change is also how we change the way we welcome emotions and welcome other people in our community, that we change the way we bring up children, that we change the way we organise together. And in the story of change there is active hope, as Joanna Macy would say, which isn't some, in the just keep going story there is pointless hope of, somebody will sort it out, it'll be fine. No, in the story of change we recognise we're the ones who are creating that change, and we are stepping into it, and that's a place of great power and collaboration. And it's a place that alleviates anxiety. So if your child is coming to you with a story of catastrophe and a lot of fear, I think it's possible to acknowledge that and to say, yeah, I understand. Of course you're scared. Of course you're scared when that's what you know and that's what you're hearing. And you can be really curious about, and what else are you frightened of, and what else are you thinking? And then I think in response you can say, I want to tell you about these 3 stories. And it basically puts that catastrophe, anxiety thinking and the just keep going story in its place as one of the ways of thinking, but it brings in the very important part of the importance of change and a choice. There's a choice here. We can live in the story of change. And I would really recommend that we all resource ourselves by reading, learning, listening to, watching other people who are in the story of change, so that the information that we are learning about climate crisis isn't just the bad news of what a mess we're in, it's also the stories of resourcefulness and action, so that we know we're not alone. Obviously, we need to talk to our children differently depending on what age they are and what we know about them, what our relationship is with them. This is a framework that could be used to talk to a whole group of people at school, for example, or if you're a parent talking to your child. Obviously depends on what you already know about their capacity and their anxiety and the way that they're seeing things and what their questions are. And when you have that framework, you can then have a conversation about what are the things in the catastrophe story that you're frightened of, or that you're angry about, or that you're wondering? What are your questions here? And then in the change story, you can say, and what are the things that you want to do and that you see me doing and that you'd like us to do together, or that you'd like to learn about? So it provides quite a rich framework for conversations. I hope you find that helpful. Thank you very much.